Welcome to Megapath Presents. I'm Ronnie Hayes, and today let's talk The Walking Dead comic Q&A number 14. And we're going to kick this off by jumping straight into the questions. You can find the rules to participate down in that video description in case you're new. And now, the first question up. Darth Negan. Hey Ronnie, they never showed anyone killing Alpha's brain, so should she still be a walker? Am I correct? Wait a minute. I thought Negan showed Rick the walker head. No? I gotta go back and look. I thought it was a walker head that he showed Rick. I'll go back and look. Oh wow, my Dragon Balls. I know in the TV show it's only about 2 years. How many years has it been in the comics? Oh geez, I don't know. I mean, we got 4, 5, 6. I'd say around 6 or 7, give or take. Katekin17. Do you think the Walking Dead TV show and the comic will end with the death of Rick, but the story of the other survivors will continue just under a different name? No, never. There's no way in hell. You built up this brand, and there's a ton of fans that are not well connected into, the news of that franchise. If you ended The Walking Dead, you will lose a good chunk of the fan base who don't realize you started it, or you kept it alive under a different name. That's a hell no. Everything you're selling is a brand. Think of it that way. And if you just stop selling it, you sell it under a different name, you're going to lose a lot of fans who just don't keep up with the news. Even if you advertise the shit out of it in the same comic they're reading, chances are you're going to get a fraction of the fans who won't even look at the ads in the back, or I don't know, just won't keep up with it. So I would say never. When Robert Kirkman first created it, then you go on to say that the story really follows Rick, and I agree with that. However, Rick's not in the greatest of shape. I also agree with that, and I think that the one thing we're glaring over is the fact that we can watch Rick as a king. Rick can lead and never leave Alexandria. He can sit at Alexandria. He can say, Michonne, will you take a group of people to Ohio and see what's going on there? Lydia, Carl, will you take a group over to Oceanside, travel up the coast, venture out into this territory? We need to build and grow for whatever reason, and then we can have little storylines where we might follow Carl for 4 or 5 issues. Then we'll shoot back over, see what Michonne is doing for a ton of issues. And then we can find new communities, new people. We can even take a side route. I think that is a thrilling idea to branch out the storyline. Imagine coming up, instead of always focusing around all the communities, imagine following Michonne and Carl and Lydia. Just those 3, maybe Jesus too. Yeah, those 4, and Negan. Hell, throw him in there. Follow those 5 characters, to Ohio. Let's just pick that out. And I'm using really general examples. Follow them to Ohio. We have a brand new, fresh story because there's the whole world out there. It looks different now because everything's growing in. They're back to that same old, survival horror that we know and love. They built fires, they get little shelters, they sleep here, sounds in the woods, all the old-fashioned horror. And it's the new world. It's the old new world that's all grown in with overgrowth and all that. I love those ideas. They might run into a couple little groups of people, some, survivors that are talking about their community over here. They're venturing out. This community's doing bad. They know 4 or 5 communities this way. Starts opening up the world a little bit. And there's no cell phones. There's no GPS. There's nothing. So if you run into someone who says, I'm exploring these areas. There's 5 communities this way. I know 3 communities this way. You can't do anything except for go and look one at a time with all that traveling. There is so much different story, and I'm just being general as hell about the amount of story you can really branch off when it comes to the comic. And again, you might have 1 or 2 arcs. That's a full year. That's 1 year just following those 5 characters. And you might even go back to Alexandria, peek on a couple characters. What's Rick and Andrea doing? What other shit might be popping off? But my point is, Rick can be back at Alexandria. We follow Carl, those 5 characters, for 6 months of our reading time. A full year of our reading time. And check back with Rick every now and then. Rick stays alive. He stays the main character, but maybe Carl picks up some of the slack. Michonne and Negan, maybe they pick up some of the slack being in the spotlight. Rick doesn't have to die. You know what I mean? He could just hang back a little bit. I love Rick though, so I prefer that he hangs back a little bit as opposed to just straight up dying. Right now anyway. He can die, just not yet. Christian Hernandez. Do you think Lydia will betray the militia after seeing Alpha's head? First off, she's not anywhere near Alpha's head. I mean, if she goes there, I guess, but by that time the war's already started. And second off, it just doesn't make any sense at all for Lydia to betray them. It just doesn't make any sense. It makes it feel like, Kirkman's chasing his tail if he wrote it in there. Me personally, that's how I feel. David Brito. In the All-Out War story arc, we get to see how Negan is a good strategist. I have a feeling that Negan is lying about being reformed, and he just has a plan to get Rick's trust and then deliver his payback. I think he's playing the long game and won't betray Rick now, but he will further down the road. Negan will slide his, and then you put a whole bunch of curses. What are my daughter's running in and out of the room, so I got to pick when I can and can't curse. What are your thoughts about Negan possibly betraying Rick? Negan can do whatever he wants, but right now it doesn't make sense. What's he going to do once he betrays Rick? Negan doesn't have an army. He's not a superhero. If he betrayed Rick, then what? He now is in the middle of communities that hate his guts. He first has to get everyone to love him. He first has to get everyone to think, man, Negan's strong, he's capable, and he's changed. He's reformed or whatever. Negan first has to win over the people, and maybe it might come to that. He needs people to back him up, and I think now he needs more than just the Saviors. The Saviors, once they got beat, once they got licked once, the survivors, I don't see them just rolling over. They're going to be like, wait a minute, we whooped yous once already. You want to go around two? Fine, okay, load up. I don't think they'll just be like, oh, we don't want none of that. Tom Coppola. When do you think Jesus will be killed off in the comics? Hey, he might be killed off in the Whisperer War. I hope he doesn't. I think there's still more story for Jesus yet. Rage Reviews. Do you think Whisperer War will be the end of the comic story? No. That's like having $100 million lottery ticket, cashing it in and say, only give me half. No, there's a lot more coming. J-Man16. Do you think Dwight will die in the Whisperer War? I think he might. Miguel Valverde. Will the Kingdom help the Saviors in the Whisperer War? And if not, what would happen to them if Rick won the war? Well, why would they help the Saviors? Do you mean the survivors? Now, if they didn't help and Rick won, there would no longer be an alliance, and I think that would be a really interesting part of the story, and I'm really hoping that's where they go. If they keep the communities around, but they have two communities that no longer get along with each other, I think that's an interesting story element that you keep on the back burner for now. JHG Cuber. Do you think that Enid will take Sophia's story in the comics? Who the hell knows? Enid feels like just a cheap replacement. I really wish they'd just do something different with her story. Nick Matthews. Ronnie, in issue 108, Rick and Jesus are talking on page 10, and they talk about smaller groups and stuff. I got to go back just to confirm what you're talking about. But no, I do not believe that they're going to help in the Whisperer War. It just doesn't make any sense to not focus on communities we already know of, like the Saviors, like the Kingdom, or the Oceanside we keep hearing about, even if that's a tiny, tiny community. It doesn't make sense not to show them and show communities we've never dealt with before. It would seem like it's out of nowhere. Like Kirkman just decided, oh man, I don't know where to take the story. Let's have this community we've never heard of come in and save the day. It just wouldn't make sense. Murdoch Nichols. Whose art do you prefer, Charlie Adler or Tony Moore? That's tough. I mean, I like Tony Moore's art and I like Charlie Adler's art. However, right now, I am so comfortable with Charlie Adler's art, with, how Rick looks, how Negan looks, how all the characters look. I don't want to give that up. So, I mean, that's tough to choose. I think there's definitely fans out there that prefer one or the other. Absolutely. But I wouldn't want to give up Charlie Adler's art. Fa Langus. Do you think over the years that the comic has gotten less dark and more lighthearted? In the beginning, you had things like Michonne getting raped, Rick losing a hand, the guy cutting Herschel's daughter's heads off. Lately, I feel like we haven't had many dark and scary things. Just want your opinion. Yeah, you know what? I think Kirkman has talked a couple times about stuff like that. And I do believe that some of the horror aspects in the beginning, or maybe the gruesome aspects, it was to get the name out there. It was to get people talking. It was for shock and awe. I mean, Herschel's daughter's death, getting the heads cut off, I strongly believe that was just shock and awe, to get some of the fans talking, to be like, oh my God, this is so crazy. And when you have a brand that is now so big it doesn't need that, it can focus on the story, I don't think we need as many moments like that. As far as dark, yeah, I wouldn't mind if we had a little bit more dark elements, but I do believe we have, the right amount right now. We just had 12 heads that were decapitated and the heads were put on spikes. I mean, that's pretty dark. That was 12 heads. I mean, you cited Rick's one arm being cut off? Compare that one arm to 12 heads. I mean, the darkness is still there. It's so twisted. They're skinning human bodies. I mean, they don't focus. They don't highlight it. They've shown it a couple times. That's dark. You know what I mean? They're skinning human flesh and wearing it as suits. That's dark. Manteca, that's it. Do you think Negan will wear Alpha's skin? No, because he left the body back at camp, and her head is really small compared to his head. So I don't think that would work. And if he did, I think it would deform it too much where you wouldn't even tell. So it would defeat its purpose. Clinton Poole, what do you think about Negan dying by sacrificing himself to Maggie one day? I don't think that would work unless you did something really incredible with Maggie's story afterwards. If you have a character that sacrifices himself for another character, you don't want that character to live on 2-3 more issues and die some stupid way. You want that sacrifice to mean something really special. So, yeah. I mean, let's say he sacrifices himself and gets really hurt, where he could die, but he gets really hurt. I think that plays out better, because then you can focus on Maggie's struggle now, dealing with the fact that he saved her life and got hurt really bad, and she still has to face him now. Like, he's still alive. Do you thank a person like that? I mean, that's an interesting story. I like that. New York Giants, man. Do you think that the bigger story arc is coming for Carl? It looks like they definitely gave him a different, more badass look with his hair and put some muscle on him. Do you think there's a big story coming for him? Or maybe taking on a leadership role? Absolutely. That's a no-brainer. I do believe Carl is next up to inherit. Why can I not say that damn word? Inherit. Yeah, that's it. Carl's going to inherit. Shit! Carl's going to take over the damn story. Coffee cap. How far do you think the Walking Dead universe will grow? Mainly for the comics, but could be applied to the TV show. We have only seen a couple of states. Will this go countrywide when they grow? Will Rick still be the leader? Will we see him in the White House? That's tough. Just because The Walking Dead grows doesn't mean Rick Grimes is going to stay the leader. I would have to say I'm not sure about Rick, being the leader still, but I do believe The Walking Dead as a franchise, as a brand, it's going to be around for a while. Even, let's say, The Walking Dead storyline crumbles, for both show and comic. Even if it just plummets overnight. 5 years, they'll reboot it in a different country and it could become its own thing. It's never going to die. Like Star Wars is making a comeback, The Walking Dead will too. The Walking Dead is here to stay. From now, Juliet, my daughter, she'll be watching, reading, hearing about it when she's in her 20s, 30s, 40s, and her kids too. It's not going anywhere. I guarantee in 30, 40 years, they'll have some kind of Walking Dead TV show where they might even recast it and retell the same story. They might do it in a different location, but it's always going to be around. Guaranteed. Unless they just act like The Last of Us and they sit on a gold mine. Fucking hell. Alright, I'm out of here. This one's way too long the way it is, but I figured I would give you guys an extra long Q&A for the comic, since I actually missed last week's Q&A. Was very busy, so here you go. Add your thoughts and opinions to that comment box. Fuck it, I'm tired, I'm done.
Subscribe now.